Hello, everybody. Here's your current events for today, Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. Let's start off in England, where United Kingdom Prime Minister Boris Johnson was moved yesterday into an intensive care. Johnson has tested positive for COVID-19 2 weeks ago. Initially, he said that he was self-quarantining on 10 Downing Street, that he had a mild case, that he was doing well. Earlier last week, he put out a statement that most of his symptoms had disappeared, except he was having a slight fever. Over the weekend, he took a turn for the worse, so much so that his doctors recommended that he be hospitalized so he could receive oxygen. Then word came last night that he was in intensive care. However, media reports out of England is saying that he is not on a ventilator. His fiancée, who is also pregnant, is also showing symptoms of the disease and is in self-quarantine at this moment. Wisconsin will be holding its presidential primary today, with polling places being open for in-person voting. The United States Supreme Court last night ruled that they would not allow absentee ballots to be counted unless they were postmarked by today. Democratic governor of Wisconsin, Tony Evers, wanted to extend the absentee ballot deadline for 2 weeks since many Wisconsin citizens have not yet received their ballot in the mail. The Supreme Court rejected that. Not only is today a presidential primary in Wisconsin, but there is an election to elect a state Supreme Court justice. So there's a couple of big issues on the ballot. Now, Michigan is going to have a election on May 5th. It is a local election in Kalamazoo County. Everyone that is registered to vote will be able to participate in the election because KRESA, the Kalamazoo Regional Educational Service Area, is asking for a renewal of a 1.5 millage that is used for schools to have extra money for operations. I think this is the third or fourth time that Kalamazoo County has been asked to renew. The previous times has overwhelmingly passed. Because of the COVID-19 concerns, the state of Michigan has set out applications to everybody that is a registered voter. On the screen, you will see my application with a letter from the Secretary of State. I filled it out and printed it off, or PDF'd it, scanned it, and sent it to my township clerk. As I was doing research for this story, I went to the state of Michigan Secretary of State website to check to make sure that this was the only thing on the ballot, and was much surprised that even though I just sent in the ballot via email, the Secretary of State's website in Lansing had already said that it had received my application. I thought that was pretty impressive. So if you're a registered voter, you can look for this. If you're not a registered voter, you would be able to register in person on Election Day. Some sad news out of Detroit. Baseball Hall of Famer Al Kaline, also known as Mr. Tiger, died yesterday at his home in Bloomfield Hills at the age of 85. The cause of death has not yet been made available. Kaline was drafted straight out of high school and never spent a day in the minors. He went directly to the major leagues, where he spent the next 22 years playing for the Detroit Tigers. After his retirement, Kaline went on to have a 27-year career as a color commentator. I knew Kaline as a player. He's one of my favorite players as a kid. And then later on, for as I said, 20 plus years, I always looked forward to hearing him make comments as I watched the games on television. In 2002, he retired from television, and the next year was named as a special assistant to the Tigers president, CEO, and general manager. So there's a lot of sad Tiger fans hearing this news about Al Kaline. Today's political cartoon is about personal protective equipment, also known as PPEs, which are extremely in high demand. President Trump yesterday announced that he and the federal government had made a deal with 3M to produce 166.5 million masks, most of them the N95 variety, much needed N95s. States have been forced to battle each other and the federal government to procure much needed PPE supplies. Governor Gavin Newsom of California announced late last week that he was working with other state governors to collectively buy masks together, so therefore they would not have to bid against each other. And that's what this cartoon is showing about how the masks are in such high demand and states or individuals are fighting for the limited supply. Here's what happened in history on this day, Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. In 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower delivers the Domino Theory speech. This is a significant speech made during the Cold War, in which Eisenhower stated that if one country fell to communism, then another country and another country and another country and another country would fall to communism until the communists would be at our own doorstep in North America. The domino theory was used initially as a reason for the United States to send advisors into Southeast Asia, Vietnam, and maintained a plausible theory during Eisenhower's 8 years as president. In 1963, the Yugoslav Constitution proclaimed General Joseph Tito president for life. He held that position until his death in 1980. He was a communist, but he was not a fan of the Soviet Union and Joseph Stalin. Matter of fact, they were at odds until Stalin's death. The Soviet Union and Yugoslavia had a little bit of a better relationship after Stalin's death, but Tito expressed that he was his own person, and just because he was a communist did not mean that the Soviet Union could tell Yugoslavia what to do. When Tito died in 1980, that set the stage for a lot of ethnic violence to rekindle in Yugoslavia. The country fell apart because there was a huge void in leadership. In 1994, violence began on this date in Rwanda, and this signified the start of the worst genocide since World War II, the Holocaust. The result of the genocide was the deaths between 500,000 and 1 million civilian Tutsis and Hutus. The UN sent peacekeepers in there not to stop the genocide, but to protect foreigners that were in the country. Eventually, the genocide did end. Well, that's our current events for today, Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. Until tomorrow, this is Mr. Ruska signing off from the home office and reminding you once again to keep calm and keep on reading. I'll see you tomorrow.